Hey there guys, how is it going? In this particular video, I'll be showing you how you can take up a machine learning model and deploy it on AWS using FastAPI. Now, this entire thing will be dividing into two different videos. So this video, or the first video, is the one in which I'll be showing you how to choose your model, how you can find a pre-trained model, and basically how you can build the FastAPI application, and also how you can build a small front end to interact with the API. Now, if you're just building the API, something like Postman or the Swagger docs that comes in with FastAPI will be your friend. But if you're trying to build a full-scale application, then maybe you'll be needing a front end. In the second part of this video, which I'll be taking up in another video, I'll show you how you can deploy this entire stuff on AWS. We'll be making use of Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2 instances, which are very common and popular, and I'll be showing you how we can do that there. So this is going to be really interesting, and let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with some basic, project details so that we get a feel of what you're going to do. And I'll show you what are the 4 steps that we have to take. So the very first step is actually choosing a particular model. Now, if you are making a model of your own, that is, if you worked on a data science project and you're actually, you have trained your own model, then maybe you can choose that particular model. But in our case, we'll be, taking up a particular pre-trained model, which I'll be showing you in a minute, and we'll be using that. The next step will be coding the FastAPI application, which basically involves us exposing some functionality of our model as a get endpoint, or let's say post endpoint, depending on what we want to do. If you want to store in the database, or if you want to just send out some results, so that will involve coding of the FastAPI application. After that, I'll make a small front end UI. And this will be pretty easy for you to understand, and the main idea is to actually interact with the application. And finally, we have the deployment section, which I've already told you in the introduction, that will be having a separate video on this part. So the GitHub repository for this particular project can be found here. So I have a generic repository on my Imperial Lord GitHub account, and I call this YouTube, and this has all the smaller applications that I'm building. So if it's a major application, then maybe I'll have a separate repository, but for this one, you'll find it inside the folder Q&A. And in here you have the backend and front end separated, so you have code for each of them, and we'll be making this everything from scratch. So basically you'll find this here. Now, one more important thing is to check out the description, because all the links, so link for this particular slide, or link for this GitHub repository, or whatever other resources, related resources that I might think is important, I'll add it in the description, so you can go ahead and find it. So now what we can do is I'll show you a small demo of what we're actually going to build, and then we'll straight away jump into VS Code and start writing our applications code. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll first of all show you some things that you need as a prerequisite. So obviously you need Python for this project. So you must check what version of Python you have installed in your system, and also you will need pip, which is the package manager, and you have to also check for its version. So once you have both of these installed globally, which means it should be added to the path, you should be good to go. Now for me, Python and pip, actually I have used them as aliases for pip 3 and Python 3 basically. So I don't need to write that 3 every time, but for your case, you maybe want to write Python 3 if you have Python 2 in your system as well. So other than that, you have to install 2 things globally. So you have to write pip install basically virtual env, and the next thing you require is pip request. So these two packages will be used because I'll be creating a virtual environment and installing all the Python packages there, and this one will help me create a requirements.txt file, which will not be very useful as of now, but when we are trying to deploy it later on, that txt file will be very useful for me. So these two packages you must install, and again, once your Python is added globally, these will also be added globally for you. So let's now actually move on, and I will show you what we need to do next. If you remember, the first thing that I told you here was choosing a particular model. Now, choosing a model, in our case, we'll need a pre-trained model because we are not going to build a model from scratch. So one of the best places for that is Hugging Face. Now Hugging Face is a website that aspires to be the GitHub of machine learning. So this is how it will look for you if once you're logged into the website, and there are a lot of things here. You have models, data sets, and you have spaces for discussions. So what we want to do is we want to click on models, and in our case, we'll find a lot of tasks here. So what are the tasks that we're trying to solve? But for us, we'll look at this question answering. So I see 1949 models here, which are corresponding to this particular task. The first one is RoBERTa based quad 2, and that is what I'll be choosing. Now, people who have no idea what RoBERTa is, RoBERTa actually is sort of a extension of the Google's BERT model, and it has been more fine-tuned. It has been trained more extensively. For our case, our RoBERTa model has been fine-tuned using the Quad 2.0 dataset, which is sort of a dataset of question and answers. Now, the aim here is that we want to answer some specific questions given a comprehension passage or some context. So for example, now here I have a context about the Amazon rainforest, and maybe I want to ask this particular question and I want to get some answer. So this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to actually take up this model and then deploy it. One of the good things that Hugging Face has given us is transformers, and the way we do that is actually using this particular piece of code here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into a new file, and then I'll show you how we can run this here. VS Code, what I can do is inside my home directory, I'll make a new directory called Q&A, and this is what I'll be using. And inside Q&A, I'll be making two more directories. So I'll call the first one as frontend, which will actually be storing our front-end code, and I'll also call the second one was as backend. So this will store our FastAPI code. Now I'll move inside backend and I'll just clear the terminal. And in here, what I need to do is I want to first of all create a virtual environment. So how do we do that? I say virtual env venv. This creates a virtual environment venv for me inside the backend folder. Also, what I can do is I can just quickly open this for you. I will move to Q&A and I'll move to backend, and bam. Okay, so this must have cleared my terminal, but that's all right. So I have my venv here now. You might want to add a .gitignore so that you don't actually put this venv back into GitHub, but that's okay. What we want to do now is we want to go ahead and create a file for us, the first Python file. So let's call this Python file roberta.py based on our particular model. So how do we make that? We can just add a file here that we can call as roberta.py. So by the way, if you wanted to do that from terminal, you could have written touch roberta.py. That would have created this file for you. And in here, I will paste what I copied back there. So I don't need this. What we need is this one. So I'm from transformers, I'm importing these two things, and the get predictions is basically done using the question and the context here. And what I'll do is I'll make this, data this up a little bit. So the first thing I'll say is context. So I'll create a variable called context, and I'll just copy this entire context here. So whatever context we had. Sorry, not that, this one, and this I'll paste here, and then I'll also make another variable called question. I'll copy this and I'll paste here. Okay, so what next we can do is I can create a function of my own. Let's call that function as NLP Q&A. and this will take two parameters, context and question. And in here what I can do is I'll say I'll just copy this one basically, or maybe how about this. Okay, and we need NLP a pipeline of course, but I'll put this out of the function, and I'll do this. And in here instead of having these hard-coded questions and answers, I'll say question and I'll say context. So just to give you a rough idea of what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make a function, and then I'll run this entirely and show you that with this hard-coded context and question, my model is actually working perfectly fine. And after that, I'll make the FastAPI application and basically make use of this particular function. So that's the whole idea that I'm trying to do here. And the only thing remains is returning the result. So let's now actually maybe install this here, but what I want to do first is I want to get inside my virtual environment because I don't want to mess with the environment of my operating system. So I'll say source venv bin activate. That puts me inside the virtual environment, and I can install this one maybe now. So it will install AutoPip 8 for me, which is basically sort of a formatter. You can not worry about that, but yeah, it sort of formatted my code. So what I need to do next, you remember I told you to have pip requirements ready. So for that I can actually say pip requirements dot. So this will create requirements.txt file for me with transformers, because that's the only import that I have made. Also, before we proceed, make sure to install Torch on your system, which is basically PyTorch. So this is necessary for running this particular model, and if you don't do it, it will give you an error saying that it needs Torch. So that being installed, what I can do is I can say Python RoBERTa.py, but before doing that I have to actually have something here. So maybe I'll say results NLP Q&A, and the context and the question will stay the same, and I can then print this result. So this context and question I'm taking from here, those hard-coded values, and I'm storing it in result, and I'm printing out the result, basically calling the function in the file. So now if I run python.this, I think okay, we need to install it actually. So what you have to do is you have to install all the things inside requirements.txt. We missed that step. So once that is done, I think it will install all these different things. It has completed the installation, and now you can run your python RoBERTa.py. So this takes a little bit of time because it needs to sort of download the model for the very first time. It's actually doing that right now. So let's wait, and I'll get back once it is done. So the downloads are now done, and I get the response on the screen. It's actually this one. So we get a score corresponding to what the answer is, or how confident the answer is, the model is about the answer. We get a start and the end point, and we get the answer. So if you look at the question again, now this is something you should have seen before, but still, the context is the option to convert models between farm and transformers gives freedom to the user and let people easily switch between frameworks. And the question is, why is model conversion important? Obviously, it's actually because it provides some freedom to the user. So what we want to do now is, now that since we have our answers, let's go ahead and create one more file here. So I'll just show you what I told you before about creating a new file. So you can use this, and that creates another file here. So main.py, and in this main.py, basically I'll be creating my FastAPI application. So let's do that now. So in here I'll create my FastAPI application, as I've already mentioned, but before that let's go ahead and look at what FastAPI is, because I'm assuming for many of you don't have prior experience with FastAPI. So FastAPI is actually a modern fast, that is high performance web framework for Python, for building APIs with Python. Now FastAPI works, I guess, with Python 3.6 plus versions, and this is the thing that will actually create APIs for us so that we can deploy our model over there. So one reason why we want fast API is first of all because obviously it's fast, but we also need to create APIs so that we can actually use a model in different circumstances. Now, creating a REST API gives you this freedom that you can, either make use of that from a website, or let's say a mobile application or a desktop application, or any other application basically that you're trying to build. In our case, it will be a website, but still, that's the advantage that API gives you. And also, since it's based on Python and we are trying to work with a machine learning stuff, so I think it's pretty easy if you go ahead with fast API. That's the idea, and let's actually go ahead and write the code now. So I'll say from fast API import fast API, and this is where I'm sort of going to import fast API, and then I'll say from fast API dot middleware dot cors. I want to import cors middleware. Now, I think one of the good ways to do this is actually writing down all the required imports in requirements.txt and then installing them. But I'll do that soon. And the next thing we'll need is gunicorn. We can also import uvicorn, and then I'll need my function that I have written there. So RoBERTa is basically this file that we created, and from here I want to import obviously you guessed it, NLP Q&A. That's the function. And what we have to do now is, since these are the imports that we have, we can clear the terminal and say pip requires dot, and I can say force. So this will overwrite whatever were present in the requirements.txt before. So now we have all the required stuff inside requirements.txt. Then that is going to be useful for us. And how will we install it? We'll say pip install, not like this, install -r requirements.txt. So it will most likely collect all these packages and install it for me. Once done, we can proceed. I'll say app is actually equal to fast API. So if you have worked with Express before, I think you might find this similar. It's not called fast, it's called fast API like this. Yeah. And then I'll just write a few lines of code to ensure that I'm actually able to call this from anywhere. So I'm going to use this add middleware function, and the middleware I'll add is basically this CORS middleware. So this CORS middleware, once added, I need to add a few other options here. So the first one is actually allow origins, and I'll set this to origins. So this ensures that basically I'm getting a request from all the different sources. So star basically means anywhere. And then I'll say allow credentials, and I'll set this to true. Again, true like this. And I'll say allow methods. And again, this is something I can copy because I'm going to use it again. So this, and finally allow headers. So if you are making this for production, it's not something that is recommended, but for our demo purpose, I think I can actually let requests come from anywhere. If you have, let's say, a specific application that you're trying to deploy, maybe you want to put that specific origin here instead of letting everything. And similarly, you want to add some more protection here. But okay, and then what you have to do is saying app.get. And the path that I'll be using for this one, I'll call it as /answers /context and / question. So I think it's pretty obvious what you're trying to do, and here I'll create my function. So corresponding to the particular get endpoint that I have, this is the function it will run when that endpoint is actually hit. And this function will do a simple thing. It will just go ahead and store the result inside a variable called result, it will request NLP Q&A with the same context and question. And if the result is not found for some reason, that means that maybe I have made a bad request. So I'll say raise HTTP exception. And what exception should I put here? I think it should be 400. That's the status code for bad request. And you have to explicitly mention status code here. Okay, we're good to go. And finally, I have to return the result, of course. So again, that adds a bit of a formatting. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the context and the question from the URL, that request URL that we're giving, and based on these parameters, I'm trying to evaluate the result and then return the result. So now that this is done, and you must have noticed that I had these two sort of unused imports in here, and these are not actually unused. They are they will be used when I'm trying to basically run my backend. So I'll be using UVCon here, but you might prefer using GUnicorn. The idea of importing them here was just to add them to requirements.txt and install them. So how do I run this? After I clear this, of course, it was messy. But I'll say UVCon main app, and I can add the reload tag so that it reloads every time. So this will take a while, and UVCon will try watching this file for all the files here for any changes. That is what the reload flag here was meant to do. Okay, so now we see that I have a score here that is being generated because I didn't remove this. Let's go ahead and change that. Okay, and refresh it. So you can see that it restarted the application, which is good. And in this particular URL, if I go here, I can go to /docs. That shows me the Swagger docs I have, which is sort of auto-generated with the FastAPI application. So if I go back here, I see this docs here, and I can try this out directly. I can have any context and any question. So maybe let's look for something like Tiger, and not like this, but Tiger Wikipedia. So yeah, in Tiger Wikipedia, I can take up this particular thing. I'll copy it, I'll paste it here. This will be my context. And let's choose a question. So it says tiger is the largest living cat species. So I can ask which is the largest living cat species. So I can execute this, and then I get this answer. So with a 47% score, I am getting that the answer is a tiger. So if I ask something like, let's say, who is AB? So which is a pretty random question out of the context, and for that particular case, I'll get a very low score here. So I'll see it's 0.50 and then 5. So again, it's giving tiger, but that's wrong, and the score is very low. So this can serve as a parameter for you to check if your answer is correct or not. So now that our backend is sort of deployed, you can see that this is running completely, and we're able to respond to requests. Let's go ahead and work on the front-end UI and make that UI which I showed you in the demo. For the front-end UI, we'll be needing Bootstrap and jQuery, and these are the two important things. And I think the other stuff that we'll use is just plain HTML, and that's something very easy. So if you don't know what Bootstrap is, you can head over to getbootstrap.com, and it's just a tool for building fast and responsive websites. And it provides us a lot of stuff. It's basically sort of a framework. It has its own components, own design schemes. And you can use this directly into your HTML files. I am pretty sure if you have some front-end experience, you must have come across Bootstrap. And similarly, jQuery, again, I think jQuery.com is the website. Here you can find that jQuery is actually a JavaScript library, which is small, fast, and feature-rich. I prefer jQuery over writing vanilla JavaScript because the queries that we are writing are very small, corresponding to as compared to the vanilla JavaScript. So these are the two things I'll be using. And what I'll do is, instead of me writing this entire stuff, I can just head over here and I'll show you what the HTML and JS files are. Also, you'll be needing the small PNG, so I'll just download it for you. And okay, wow, that's a bad way, but okay, we'll see. And what we need is we have the index.html here, which I'll copy. Back here, let me just open my terminal, and in the terminal what I'll do is I'll head to Q&A and front end, and I'll open this in another VS Code window. Okay, and in this VS Code window, let's create a index.html file, and in here I'll paste this. I'll also create a script.js file, and back here I will copy the script.js, I think it was here, and I'll paste it here. Okay, so I think the only thing remaining is the question.png, which is here. So I'll just copy it, and back in my Q&A folder, I will paste it inside the front end. So that shows up here. So everything is good. And what I'll do now is I'll briefly explain you what we're doing here, not to waste a lot of time. We have basically some HTML, but the idea is we are using Bootstrap, and we're using jQuery, and we have also put up Axios as a library, and inside script.js, which I'm by the way using here. And what I'm aiming to do is I'm trying to make a get request to this particular endpoint. Now, since it is running at this endpoint 127.0.0.1 port 8000, and I am trying to get in those two values, I mean the context and the question, from a HTML form here. So basically, this is the form that you have. This is the form that you have, and from that form, I am taking in these two things. And once those things are with me, I'm sending a get request. I'm getting the response from FastAPI. I'm trying to check if the response is higher than, it has a score higher than 10 power minus 5, which will ensure that that response is sort of valid. And once that response is valid, I am actually showing it on the screen. So it's that simple. And if you have previously used VS Code, there is this wonderful live server extension. You can also find it in here. So if I say something like live server, you should be able to see this. So live server is the extension, so you can install this one. It's pretty easy. Why it's useful, you can just click on go live, and it will open up the entire HTML file in a new it will actually run this in a server for you. So now it is running on the same endpoint, in fact, and I'm on a different port. I can select a context, I can select a question, and I can submit. So the best way to test it is actually to go ahead to Wikipedia, let's say, and inside Wikipedia I can search for India. I believe that is what I showed you in the demo, and let's do that again. So in India, I can copy this first paragraph, okay, this one, and I'll paste it here. And let's expand this a bit more. Okay, and now I have questions. So if I ask a question like, so it's a country in South Asia, so I can say like, how large is India, let's say. So what will happen when I submit is it will load things up, and back here I can see in my backend that I have got this. Okay, so basically what happened is that in main.py I have it as answers, and I am sending it to answer. So I'll just go ahead and change this back in the script.js. Instead of sending it to answer, I'll send it to answers. Let's save this, and I'll go back to my browser, which will have changed, but okay, I can just copy paste it back. Okay, so you see it was also automatically reloaded when I changed the file. So it also listens for changes, the live server extension basically. Okay, so now you can ask a question. So maybe I guess we are asking the question of how large is India. If I do that again and I submit it, I see that it's 7th largest country by area. So now you can go for any other type of questions. You can go for question like what is the south of India? What is to the, let's say, east of India? Why not? and if I submit that, I get Bangladesh and Myanmar, and it got the information from Bangladesh and Myanmar to the east. And basically, it's pretty great. The model is great, of course, and I mean that everything is working. So yeah, congrats! We were successfully able to create a API using FastAPI, and that's all for this particular video. All right. Thanks for watching that, and I really hoped you had a very productive session and you got to learn something new. And especially if it's your first time dealing with something like FastAPI. So let me know down in the comments how you feel about this and what helped or how it helped you. And in the very next video, I'm going to show you how we can deploy all this on AWS EC2, and I'll also be helping you out with a few other things, all these small tips and tricks while we are deploying on EC2. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as for this particular video, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.